Alright, second half of the stream. We're reading Higurashi. As our I don't know how we would call it. Our come down stream. That sounds bad. That sounds like a bad phrasing. Our lower our energy stream. I don't know if it was that chapter 3 secret boss that we just did, or if it's just me, but I have like the slightest onset of like a headache coming on. So I don't know how much I want to read a bunch, but I also if it gets worse. If it gets worse, then we will only read for a bit, unfortunately. Also, I should say, especially when it comes to Higurashi, I think it's next weekend on Saturday. I have a river float trip with friends planned, so there will not be any stream next Saturday unless something falls through, but I don't think it does because it's our like yearly trip we do. Something drastic would have to happen. So yeah, no stream next Saturday, which means no Higurashi reading on Saturday or anything else happening on Saturday, I guess I should say as well. So just putting that out into the universe. Now let's get to reading. What was the last tip we read? Psychosomatic medical report. Saturday. The last thing that happened, I think, was tragedy was striking. I think Tomoe was upset. It was happening. Wasn't able to prevent it from happening. Things of that nature. The best recap. All right, Saturday, July 2nd, 1983. Hello? Papa? Yay, it's been a long time. Are you doing well, Miyuki? Oh, so this is like young Miyuki, right? Like, I mean, obviously, like we saw Miyuki aged up, doing her thing with old, Shion Mion Shion. Yeah, I'm fine. Where are you, Papa? Papa. Well, forgot I was supposed to wait. Well, Papa is still working really far away. Have you been behaving yourself at Grandpa's house, Miyuki? Yep. Grandma and Grandpa play with me a lot. And we went shopping earlier and they bought me a doll. I'll show you next time we're here, Papa. Okay. I'm looking forward to it. I tried to avoid buying too many toys for Miyuki to keep her disciplined. But my mother and father-in-law figured she was lonely all by herself, so they would always buy her anything she wanted. Naturally, that brought us close to arguing several times. But once they alluded to my own attitude towards child rearing, there was nothing I could say back to them. When are you coming home? Tomorrow? Definitely not tomorrow. But I think I'll be able to come home soon. Really? When? Uh, um... I said that to reassure her, but I immediately began to regret it. I didn't know the exact time frame, and there was no proof I could keep a half-baked promise. However... Okay, I understand. Papa is a policeman, so people need his help. Miyuki. I'll be fine, okay? I'll keep being a good girl and wait here until you come back, Papa. I'm sorry. She sounded cheerful, but I detected a hint of loneliness in my daughter's voice. I appreciated her kindness, but it still hurt. Alright, Miyuki. I'll talk to you later. Yeah. Alright, Papa, see you later. Her cheerful voice echoed as she slammed the phone down. She was probably just handling it roughly out of childish innocence, but to me, the loud sound felt like it was condemning my inadequacy. Damn. I'm sorry. I softly muttered as I set the receiver down. She's growing up without a mother, so I would spend more time with her as a father. Even though I'm a police officer, I'm still hopeless as a parent. And even though my daughter is the one most in need of comforting, I'm still trying to seek comfort for my own depressed feelings. Sensing a presence at the break room entrance, I suddenly turned to look, and I found Chief Inspector Manai standing there with a troubled expression. Forgive me. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but...
yeah.
Oh, no. Sure caught me at a pathetic time. Chief Inspector Manai had a stack of documents in her hands. She was probably coming to talk to me. Sorry about that. So, did you figure something out? Huh? Yes. Oishi-san is waiting in conference room 3. You can hear the full story there. Understood. Then, Chief Inspector Manai and I headed toward the 1st Investigation Division's conference room. Manai and I. For a while, we walked in awkward silence. Yes? I responded by turning to face her. That phone call earlier. Was that your daughter? Yeah, she's 5 years old. My wife's parents are taking care of her at the moment. Parents? Then, I told Chief Inspector Manai about how I lost my wife, being careful not to darken the mood too much. Right away, she gasped in shock. Yeah, now you feel bad. That's terrible. After that, she quickly grew quiet, but her words sounded earnest and compassionate. And then... My father was also a police officer. It's been 12 years since he passed away. I see. I'd already heard the story from Oishi-san, but I pretended not to know. Just like earlier, her words contained a feeling that only people with a similar past could understand. When I was young, I occasionally complained that he hardly ever took time off work. Other kids were able to spend time with their fathers on Sundays and holidays, but that was rarely the case in our home. Pains me to hear that. I had to cancel my vacation before coming out here, and she was rather disappointed. I'm sure I'll hear a lot of... I'm sure I'll hear a lot of complaints for not being there. Maybe so. Still. Chief Inspector Manai turned toward me and raised her head. Her eyes wandered for a moment as she chose her words, then she looked straight at me and spoke. I'm so proud of my father. The reason I chose this job, the reason I'm able to keep pushing myself forward is because he was here.
だからいつか赤坂警視のお子さんもきっと分かってくれると思います。
So someday, I'm sure your daughter will understand too, Spectre Akasaka.
親にもなったことのない自分が申し上げるのは僭越ですが、一緒に過ごした時間だけが親の思い出じゃないと今なら分かります。
It may be improper of me to say this since I've never been a parent myself, but now I can understand. But my memories of my father aren't limited to just the time we spent together.
元気を出してください。
Please don't let it get to you.
見ない警部。
Chief Inspector Minai.
お先に行きます。
I'll go on ahead,
それでは。
if you'll excuse me. Chief Inspector Minai turned away and quickly headed out. As I watched her walk away, I noticed that the heavy mood from earlier had gotten a little lighter.
ありがとう。巴さん。
Thank you, Tomoe-san. When I entered the meeting room, I noticed Chief Inspector Minai, Oishi-san, and two other detectives. Their faces looked familiar. Quickly recognized them as Chief Inspector Minai's subordinates who were running around the crime scene the other day.
すみません。お待たせしました。
I'm sorry I kept you waiting.
いえいえ、別に待っていませんよ。
Oh no, we haven't been waiting long. Oishi-san laughed as he put out his cigarette by the window. The ashtray was relatively clean and mostly empty. I guess this room is for important business, so the smokers feel too ashamed to use it.
赤坂さん、まずご紹介を。
Let's begin with introductions to Akasaka-san.
こちらは藤田巡査部長と花田巡査部長です。
This is Sergeant Fujita, and this is Sergeant Hanada.
今日から本腰を入れてこの一件に加わってもらうことになりました。
I asked them to assist with this case from here on out. At Chief Inspector Minai's urging, the two young detectives briefly stopped preparing materials to bow to me. They looked slightly nervous, but they were police officers, so they didn't seem all that strange.
二人とも素行はあまりいいとは言えませんが、口の堅さと頑丈さだけは信用できます。
I can't say the two of them have the best conduct, but I do trust them to be dedicated and keep their lips sealed.
今回のような地道な捜査には最適だと思います。
I think they're our best bet for the investigation at this time.
え、
Huh?
そんなに俺たち素行悪いですかね。
We're not that bad, are we?
未来さん、
Minai-san.
口の硬さはともかく頑丈って褒めてるんですか？
Was that supposed to be a compliment about our work ethic?
もちろん。
Of course.
なんせ私の右足くんと左足くんだからね。
You guys are essentially my left and right legs. Chief Inspector Minai smiled after saying that. She never spoke in such a casual tone around us. Hearing that allowed me to recognize how much she trusted these two.
にしても足、
So I'm a leg?
腕じゃなくて？
Not even an arm?
つまりアッシーくんですか。俺たちって。
Sounds like we're just her chauffeurs.
なに？
What?
不満なの？
Was that a complaint?
いいえ。
No! The two of them dejectedly hung their heads. After encouraging them, Chief Inspector Minai's expression tensed and she returned to her desk.
それでは始めましょうか。
Anyway, let's get started.
藤田くん。
Fujita-kun?
はい。まずは
Right. First of all, on Chief Inspector Minai's direction, Detective Fujita spread the material out on the desk. The names and addresses of the Hinamazawa residents that the Chief Inspector, Oishi-san, and I had already investigated were marked in red. The far left column listed the age of each person. The list was mostly elderly people around age 70.
昨夜の一件を受けて、当初の5年前からさらに10年前まで対象者を広げてみました。
In response to the incidents yesterday, I expanded the scope of the list from 5 years ago to 10 years ago.
数としてはおよそ2倍。いや、3倍弱ってところでしょうか。
That doubled, no, tripled the number of names.
結構な数ですね。
That's a rather large number. Oh. Our eyes suddenly stopped on some names marked with red circles.
畠山一馬と小畑清。
Kazuma Hatakeyama and Kiyoshi Obata. Needless to say, those were the names of the two elderly men who lost their lives in the tragedy last night.
完全に盲点でしたね。
It was a total blind spot.
ええ。
Right.
小畑清は畠山氏と比べて表立って派手な行動をしていませんでした。
Unlike Hatakeyama, Kiyoshi Obata wasn't acting unusually at all on the surface.
だから見落としてしまった。
Thus, we overlooked it. Everyone let out a deep sigh in unison. As much as we knew about the peculiarities of this curse, we were still powerless to prevent this tragedy, and that tormented us.
それにしても私たちはたたりを恐れて奇妙な行動を起こす人を注意してきましたが、それ以外のことにも目を向けないといけないようですね。
Though we've been focusing our attention on the individuals expressing fear of the curse and exhibiting strange behavior, it seems there's a need to turn our eyes to other signs.
それ以外のこと？
Other signs?
周囲への影響ですよ。
Their effects on their surroundings.
伝染と言った方がいいですかね。
You might even say it's contagious. Oishi-san was certainly right. Unlike Kazuma Hatakeyama, Kiyoshi Obata wasn't acting unusual in any way. However, there was a high probability that Obata was negatively influenced by Hatakeyama due to their close relationship.
それにしてもこれだけ範囲を拡大するとなれば捜査するのも一苦労ですよ。
Even so, expand the scope this far would make it difficult to investigate.
120世帯以上をこの人数でローラーかけるわけですか。
Are we planning to roll through 120 households on our own?
単純に計算しても20日以上はかかりますね。
By my calculations, that'll take over 20 days. Detective Hanada shrugged his shoulders with a bitter smile. Indeed, when it came to our numbers, hard work alone wouldn't be enough. Besides, that was almost double the time we had left. Man, this is tough. But just as I began muttering those words to myself... Oh.
どうしました赤坂警視。
What is it, Inspector Akasuka?
見ない警部。それと大石さん。
Chief Inspector Minai? Oishi-san?
単なる偶然かもしれませんが、ちょっと奇妙なことを見つけました。
This may just be a coincidence, but I noticed something strange.
奇妙なこと？
Something strange?
これを見てください。
Please look at this. Sensing that something was off, I marked the list with a red pen. And then...
これとこれとこれが私の回った家で、これが見ない警部。
These are the houses...
これが大石さんの担当部。
These are the houses I visited yesterday. This one was Chief Inspector Minai's, and Oishi-san handled this one.
そしてそれぞれ奇妙な飾り付けやまじないを施していた家がこの5つになります。
This one was Chief Inspector Minai's, and Oishi-san handled this one, and the houses with the strange decorations and talismans were these 5.
あ、
ほほ
Oh. Seeing them side by side on the list, the two of them noticed it too. Those 5 houses all had a certain thing in common.
そうです。
That's right.
みんな2世帯家族なんですよ。
All of them had multi-generational families.
う。
Hmm? Yeah, their homes only had people working on weekdays, so they were out or pretending to be out, and their houses had no decorations. It's the same in the homes of the elderly. Thinking about it, even the murderer, Kiyoshi Obata, didn't have any decorations at home. No prayers, no magic spells.
しかし介護センターで事件を起こした正木さんは違いませんか？
But what about Masaki-san, who caused the incident at the care center?
確かに彼女には娘さん夫婦がいるとリストにはありますが、一緒に住んでいたわけではない。
Indeed, she had a daughter and a son-in-law on the list, but they didn't live together.
それなんですけどね。
Well, that's the thing.
実は先週一度自宅に帰っているんですよ。
You see, she actually visited them last week.
で、本来なら孫の夏休みが始まるまで家族と一緒に暮らすはずだったとのことでしたが、急に予定を繰り上げてセンターに戻ってきたそうで。
She had originally planned to stay with the family until her grandchild's summer vacation began, but I heard they had to suddenly alter the schedule and return her to the center.
ということは
That means...
自宅で問題行動を起こして家族が家から叩き出した。
The family might have kicked her out for exhibiting problematic behavior at home?
まだ聞いてみないことには何とも。
I haven't heard anything about that yet,
ですが、可能性はゼロではありませんね。
but I can't deny the possibility. Indeed, the pattern at the Masaki family seemed to be the opposite of the Hatakeyama family. And that means...
それじゃたたりに何か関与すると思われる対象は2世帯が同居する家庭ということですか？
Well then, that means this curse is somehow tied to the fact that multiple generations are living together?
いえ、そこまではまだ。
No, not for sure.
ですが、危険度が高いということは言えるかもしれません。
However, you could perhaps say that the risk factor is high.
そしてそう考えてみると現在2世帯家族で事件に巻き込まれていないのは こ
Thinking
の
of...
物部に住む
I knew he was still going.
竹上家と岡本家だけです。
Thinking about it more, there are other multi-generation households that haven't had any incidents, like the Takegami and Okamoto families living in Minobe.
モノノベですか。
In Minobe?
割とここから近いですね。
That one is really close to here. In response to my suggestion, Detective Hanada drew red lines under the names Hirotada Takegami and Katsu Okamoto. Below those names, there were 5 and 3 people connected to those two, respectively.
それから小畑容
Respectively.
疑者が
Not
沖
respectfully.
宮出身でしたので沖宮から転居してきた家族も捜査対象の中に入れました。
Since the suspect Obata was originally from Okinomiya, we also add the families from Okinomiya into the list.
藤田君、
Fujita-kun?
はい。こちらはひなみ沢の隣町沖宮出身の家族のリストです。
Right. This is a list of families from Okinomiya, town next to Hinamazawa.
その中で祖父母と同居するものとなると
Among them, the ones living together with grandparents. Based on that assumption, I marked all the relevant names with a red pen. By narrowing the list under that assumption, there are only 8 multi-generational households left. The number had decreased substantially.
ずいぶん少ないものね。
This is significantly fewer.
これだけ？
Only these?
ですね。
Right.
時代ですよ。時代。
That's how things are in modern times.
そういう私も父と母とは離れて暮らしていますから。
I live far away from my mother and father, too.
へえ、職員公社ですか。
Ah, staff housing?
安いですからね。
It's cheap.
せっかく公務員なんですから。使わない手はないです。
I'm a civil servant, so I have to make do what I have. With what I have.
うちは実家なんで。まあ、それも使わない手はないわけです。
My family lives at home with me, so I have to make do with what I have, too. Oishi-san laughed after saying that, and Detective Fujita and Detective Hanada joined him in laughter. From what I could tell, the two of them apparently had wives, but didn't live near their parents. It's thanks to the explosive population growth after the war. Economic growth peaked during the post-war period, and public housing grew with tremendous momentum. Consequently, the number of people moving out of their parents' homes and into cities to start their own families has increased. That sort of pattern was evident from examining the list of people who moved out of Hinamazawa. Young adults leaving the village one after another, leaving only the elderly and the children back in the village. However, perhaps the people from Hinamazawa had a strong hometown sentiment, as many of them still returned to the village afterwards. And so, the number of young couples living together with grandparents has been declining.
さて、
Now?
そういうことならとりあえず藤田君は竹上家を重点でその周辺をお願い。
For the time being, I'd like Fujita-kun to focus on the Takegami family. Please ask around the area.
花田君は岡本家重点でよろしく。
Hanada-kun, please take care of the Okamoto family.
私は佐伯介護福祉センターでの聞き込みの後、畠山家の現状を確認します。
I'll assess the Hatakeyama family after visiting the Psyche Care and Welfare Center.
で、大石さんと赤坂さんには沖宮出身の家を回ってもらいたいんですが、どうされますか？
And Oishi-san, Kasuka-san, I'd like you to start by visiting the families that moved from Okinomiya. How does that sound?
私たちは
Well, there was still an enormous number of families from Okinomiya. Was there something we could do to narrow it down a bit? Even split between myself and Oishi-san, where would we start? Oishi-san's eyes stopped at a particular name on the list. It said Kimiyoshi. Wait, the 3 great families of Hinamazawa were the Furudes, the Sonozakis, and...
その通りですよ、赤坂さん。
That's right, Kasuka-san.
間違いなく、これはひなみ沢の御三家の一つですね。
No doubt, this is one of the 3 families of Hinamazawa.
なぜ断言できるんですか？
How can you be so sure?
ひなみ沢の村で御三家の名前を付けられるのはその血筋の者しかいないからですよ。
Because that name is exclusively used by members in the bloodline of Hinamazawa's 3 families.
ともえちゃん、よく見つけましたね。
Good job finding this, Tomoe-chan.
いえ、私はそのこと今初めて知りました。
Huh? No, this is the first time I've heard of this.
でも 沖宮から移転した家族にそんなひなみ沢の有力名家が移り住んでいたんですね。
So, a member of an influential family in Hinamizawa moved out of Okinomiya? According to ancient legends, the three families of Hinamizawa were said to possess the blood of demons. Someone sharing the blood of a powerful family in the village is certainly worth investigating.
私たちの担当はこの家からで。
We'll start from this house.
赤坂さん、ここだけは一緒にどうです？
Kasuka-san, what do you say to handling this one together?
そうですね。
I agree.
早速今から向かいましょう。
We should head out immediately.
それでは私は再起介護福祉センターから行きます。
Then, I'll head to the Psyche Care and Welfare Center.
畠山一馬氏の入院中のことで何かわかるかもしれませんので。
They might know something about Kazuma Hatakama's hospitalization.
わかりました。
Understood.
よろしくお願いします。
I'll do my best. Then, Oishi-san and I decided to pay a visit to the Kimiyoshi family, who moved from Okinomiya 1 year ago. However, we were hit with a sudden rainstorm on the way, so it took longer than expected. Hoping to make up for lost time, Oishi-san and I rushed to the house. The Kimiyoshi family, one of the three families of Hinamizawa, was in this town. That fact made my heart race. Oishi-san must have felt the same way as he pushed toward without wasting any time on idle chatter. And once we reached the house, we stopped in front of the gate. I checked the nameplate. Toji Kimiyoshi. That was the name of the homeowner. According to our records, the head of the family, Toji Kimiyoshi, was not from Hinamizawa, but another prefecture. He met Haruko Kimiyoshi in college and later took her family name. Haruko Kimiyoshi is a distant relative of the mayor of Hinamizawa, Kichiro Kimiyoshi. They say she's quite beautiful, but she has a strong personality and walks all over her husband. She was apparently involved in student activism during her college days, and the records are still in prefectural police headquarters. However, photos we just acquired gave the impression that she was just a typical housewife living a peaceful life. And then, there was Haruko's mother, Aki. Aki is from Hinamizawa, and it seems her deceased husband, Tokujiro Kimiyoshi, was also her cousin. In other words, it was a marriage between different branches of the family. Oh. Apparently, marriage between relatives wasn't unusual at that time, and in a sense, doing so was an effective way of keeping the blood of Hinamizawa purest within the family. Oh boy. Oh boy. And finally, the only daughter in the Kimiyoshi family, a high school girl, Natsumi. Based on the photographs I've seen, she looked like an ordinary girl with lovely round eyes. It was a bit rare for high school kids nowadays to have such youthful facial features.
ここで間違いないですね。
This is definitely the place, isn't it?
ええ。
Right. I nodded toward Oishi-san, and then, as I moved through the gate, I noticed the shadow of a person sitting near the entrance, with 2 pigtails and wearing a school uniform. Her head was pointed down, but it was clearly a girl.
雨宿りでしょうか。
Is she taking shelter from the rain?
自分の家の玄関先でですか？
No. At the entrance of her own house? After thinking about it, that was a stupid question. Not many people would sneak through a courtyard to take shelter in front of another family's house. That means this was her home. But why on earth would she be sitting in front of the entrance?
だな。
Have I? And just then, I heard the girl's voice.
やっぱりアルバイト行けばよかったな。
I should have gone to my part-time job after all, huh?
もう少し小ぶりになってくれれば。
If only the rain died down a little. She muttered something, but I couldn't catch it. Her voice was drowned out by the sound of the crashing raindrops. Oishi-san and I silently nodded to one another, then slowly approached. The girl must have noticed our footsteps. She gasped and looked up.
すみません。
Excuse me?
この家の方ですか。
Is this your house?
はい。
Yes? She timidly nodded her head. Without needing to double-check the picture, I was certain that this girl was Natsumi-san, the daughter of the Kimiyoshi family.
はじめまして。
Nice to meet you.
沖宮書房の赤坂守と言います。
I'm Mamoru Akasuka from Okinomiya Books.
あ、こんにちは。
Hello? Natsumi-san seemed to lighten up when I mentioned the name Okinomiya. Oishi-san suggested that we avoid mentioning our connection to the police this time around. People who have been living peacefully often react strongly when they hear someone mention the police.
それにしても土砂降りの中。 家に
Still,
も入らずに何をしているのだろ
still, what is she doing outside in the middle of this downpour?
う。こんなところでどうかされましたか？
What are you doing out here? Um,
鍵を忘れて。
I forgot my key.
鍵？
Key?
今日は父も母もおばあちゃんもみんな用事で出かけてるんです。
Today, my mom, my dad, and even my grandma are all out on business.
でも私朝学校に行くときに忘れちゃって。
But I forgot to grab the key when I went to school this morning. I see. So that means she can't get inside until someone else in the family comes home. However, it might actually be more convenient for us if no adults are present. Oishi-san must have had the same thought as he took the opportunity to start a friendly conversation with her.
なるほど、それはお気の毒です。
I see. Sorry to hear that.
ではいかがですか？
In that case,
雨宿りがてらに近くでお茶でも。
in that case, would you care to take shelter and grab some tea nearby? Oishi-san invited her in a gentle tone, but Natsumi-san wore a cautious expression. That reaction was only natural, of course.
いや、私たちは決して怪しいもんじゃありませんよ。
No, there's no need to be afraid of us.
沖宮書房というのは鹿骨市沖宮にある出版社でしたね。
We're from Okinomiya Books, a publisher in the Okinomiya region of Shishibone City. Definitely not cops. Definitely not cops. You're from Okinomiya? Natsumi-san seemed to show more interest after he mentioned Okinomiya. That was the town where she lived until last year.
ええ、
That's right.
私たちは沖宮の出版社からやってきたんですよ。
We came from the publisher's office in Okinomiya.
本好きですか？
Do you like books?
はい、好きです。
Yeah, I do.
ほとんど図書館で借りた本ですが。
Though most of them are books I borrowed from the library. Natsumi's eyes began to shine as she rattled off the names of several famous books. Based on how much she had to say about it, she really must love books.
確かに面白い本は買うと高いですからね。
Of course, it'd be really expensive to buy every interesting book.
そうなんです。
That's right.
古い本が多いから読みにくいこともありますけど、それも楽しかったりして。
A lot of them are old books, so sometimes they're hard to read, but they're still fun. Anyone would get sucked into a conversation about their favorite topic. Natsumi-san seemed happy, and she began talking about subjects beyond just answering our questions.
で、それから、
Anyway,
それでご用件は？
what are you here for? But there had to be an end to the lighthearted conversation. After a brief pause, Natsumi-san asked again curiously.
実はですね、私たちは地域史の本を作っていましてね。
Actually, we're putting together a book on regional history.
この家のおばあちゃんはひなみ沢出身と聞いて、裏のお話を聞きたいと考えてお伺いしたんですが。
I heard that the grandmother's house is from Hinamizawa, and I wanted to hear what she had to say about life in the village.
地域史？
Regional history?
さっきお話に上がったタイトルの中には地方の民話を元に書いた作品もありますよね。
Some of the books we were just talking about were based on local folklore, right?
あ、そうです。
That's right.
童話とかは作家がその地方に残る民間伝承を取材して書き上げたものが多くて。
There are a lot of books where an author gathers up local fairy tales and records them.
ああ、わかりません。それで私たちもそういった地域に残る話を後世に伝えたいと思いまして、こうやって活動をね。
Ah, so you understand. We want to preserve these stories so they can be passed on to future generations.
へえ。
Wow. Asumi-san nodded with a glimmer in her eyes. I was making up the story as it went along, but it seemed like the story got through to her.
ということで、地元のお年寄りの話を聞いているんですよ。
That's why we're listening to the stories of local elders. No.
ああ。
I hope she kills them because they're lying. They're cops. They can't be lying, right? Isn't that what they always say? I see. However, I'm not sure if Oishi-san looks like the kind of man who works at a publishing company. She looked back at him with a dubious expression. If we were going for the book story, Bookstore story, yeah. It's funny. Maybe it would have been better if I talked to her alone.
ああ、この人は私の上司でね。
Ah, that's my boss.
大石と言います。
His name is Oishi.
どうも、同僚の大石です。
Nice to meet you. I'm Oishi.
どうです
So,
ちょっとお話を聞かせてもらえませんかね。
do you have any stories to tell us?
でも私沖宮の歴史なんて全然。
I don't know anything about the history of Okinomiya, though.
いやいやいやいや、気になさらずに。
Nonsense. Don't worry about that.
何でも、そう軽い世間話でもいいんですよ。
Anything, even idle chatter would be fine.
ならおばあちゃんに聞いてください。
Then you should talk to my grandma.
もうすぐ多分あと2時間くらいで帰ってきますから。
She'll be back soon, maybe in about 2 hours?
それじゃ、その方が戻ってくるまでの時間潰しということでいかがです？
Well then, what would you say to killing some time until she gets back?
あなたさっきお腹が空いたと言ってらしたようですが。
You seem like you've had the I'm hungry look for a while now.
あ、
Natsumi-san suddenly held her stomach. And just then her stomach lightly gurgled.
な
No.
図星ですね。
Bullseye!
さあさあ参りましょう。
Come on, let's get going.
せっかくですから美味しいものご馳走しますよ。
Don't worry, you can have all the delicious food you want. My treat. Immediately after saying that, Oishi-san started walking toward the street.
え、
Stranger danger. Huh? Natsumi-san looked confused, but she quickly got caught in the flow and stood up.
どうぞ。
Here you go. Just then I held up my umbrella to her, and she seemed like the type who couldn't refuse, so she timidly walked side by side with me. The three of us sat at a booth in a coffee shop. Oishi-san and I sat across from Natsumi Kimiyoshi-san. The two of us must look peculiar, sitting with a high school girl wearing her school uniform. I couldn't help but wonder trivial thoughts like that. Taking a peek beside me, Oishi-san was carefully looking at Natsumi-san with a forced smile on his face. More like staring at her.
大石さん。怪しまれますよ。
Oishi-san, you're looking suspicious. I prodded him with my elbow as I quietly muttered that. No.
めったにこんな若い子と話す機会がないものでつい。
Sorry, it's rare that I have the opportunity to speak with a young lady, so I got carried away. Great. Good grief, he was as much a sly dog as ever. Even during all that joking, he was still keeping a watchful eye on every gesture Natsumi Kimiyoshi made.
さて、何を頼まれますか？
Well, what should we order?
と、
あ、私夏美です。
My name is Natsumi.
君吉夏美。
Natsumi Kimiyoshi? She reflexively gave us her name and timidly repeated it. She probably did it to show proper manners around adults, so guess that made her suddenly nervous. And then she turned her pale face this way to ask a question.
それで私に話って何ですか？
So, what did you want to talk to me about? I looked down, thinking carefully and choosing my words. Then, I slowly raised my eyes.
そうですね。
Right. Well,
私たちが聞きたいのは、
what we wanted to ask you about is... Natsumi-san's generation might not know much about it, but...
お社様についてです。
regarding Oyashiro-sama. Natsumi-san acutely tilted her head and stared blankly ahead. Maybe she didn't understand what I was talking about. No, that's impossible. She was a child of the Kimiyoshi family, one of the three great families of Hinamazawa. She still lived with her grandmother, so she must have heard something. After thinking that, I continued.
南沢の土着信仰、お社様崇拝について話を聞きたいのですよ。
I'm interested in Hinamazawa's indigenous faith, their worship of Oyashiro-sama, and I'd like to hear what you had to say about it.
それってあまり私はよく。
I don't know much about that.
確かにおばあちゃんは神棚にお参りしています。
I know that Grandma keeps a shrine for it,
でも詳しいことは。
but aside from that,
そのおばあちゃんの神様には終末思想というものがあるんですよ。
that god of your grandmother's is tied to a story of, oh god, eschatology, the end of times.
終末思想
Same, Natsumi. Eschatology? Eschatology is found in many religions and cultures across the world. It's an ideology seen in times of political and economic instability, where people seem to find the cause and identify the trends of that distress in either divine judgment or salvation in the future.
それがおばあちゃんのどんな
What does that have to do with Grandma?
ねえ、その終末思想がたたりというものを引き起こしたと私たちは考えています。
Right. We believe that eschatology is derived from a curse. Huh?
先日村がガスで全滅しました。
The entire village was annihilated by gas the other day.
例のひなみ沢村のガス災害です。
The great Hinamizawa disaster.
それで噂が流れていましてね、お社様のたたりだと言うんです。
So rumors were floating around that Oyashiro-sama's curse was allegedly responsible.
ですがこれがただの噂でなくなってきてしまった。
But this isn't just a rumor anymore.
村の出身者、特に老人を中心に理解しがたい行動が広がっていましてね。
Since then,
気候ですよ。
people from the village have been acting unusually, especially the elderly, behaving eccentrically. Behaving eccentrically? In other words, they all believe that the disaster was caused by Oishiro-sama's curse, and are trying to halt that curse by conducting these religious ceremonies. Allegedly. Natsumi-san seemed to be listening carefully for the time being, but her expression suggested that she was a little confused. Looking at her, it seemed like she was trying to digest the information and piece it together with what she already knew. After carefully observing the situation, I continued. I told her about the religious ceremonies and about the recent serious incidents. Arson, murder, and the most common element, suicide. If someone wanted to take their own life, they could easily just hang themselves or jump in front of a train. But the troubling thing was, the culprits often dragged unrelated bystanders into these incidents. Several incidents happened in the places we visited. An elderly person started a murder incident in the bathhouse at the care center. An old man involved his family by setting their home on fire in Sugaya.
これらはすべてひなみ沢出身者によって引き起こされているんです。
All these incidents were caused by people from Hinamizawa.
そんなの私
I don't... Natsumi-san slumped down onto the table. It was only natural. There are many frightening criminals out there who came from her hometown. How would I feel hearing the same thing? And at last, she seemed to understand why we came here. The remorse and uneasiness climbed up to her face as she caught her breath.
あなた方は
You people are...
自殺者の中には通常の思考では考えられない死に方をする人までいるんです。
Also, some of the people who committed suicide did so by means that no ordinary person would consider.
まるで周囲の人までも生贄として巻き添えにするように。
As if they and the people they involved were being sacrificed.
例えば自分の爪で喉を引き裂いて血にまみれながら苦しみ抜いて死ぬとか。
For example, clawing out their throat with their own nails, struggling and drenching themselves in blood until the moment of death.
ちなみにあなたの家は大丈夫ですか？
By the way, is your family doing alright? Asumi-san's shoulders were lightly trembling. She looked down like she was thinking of an answer. No, it looked more like she was searching for the words to escape this place.
大丈夫
They're alright. Huh? Just then, Oishi-san, who stayed silent up until that point, suddenly grabbed Natsumi-san's downward-facing head with both his hands and lifted it up.
嘘でしょ？
Don't touch her. You're lying, right? Natsumi-san's eyes froze as she looked up at Oishi-san.
まずい。大石さん、やりすぎだ。
This is bad. Oishi-san, you're going too far. I tried reaching out to stop him, but Oishi-san continued speaking before I had the chance.
ひなみ沢にはね、わからないことが多すぎるんですよ。
When When it comes to Inamazawa, there are too many things we don't know.
特に今回の合災害とその後の事件はもう我々の事件をはるかに超えている。
Especially the gas disaster and those subsequent incidents. It's way beyond our league.
フルデ神社の巫女フルデリカが災害前に惨殺された。
The shrine maiden of the Furude Shrine, Rika Furude, was murdered right before the disaster.
彼女が殺されたことがこの一連の事件と何らかの関連がある。
That murder must have something to do with the series of events.
それぐらいなんですよ、我々が思いつくのは。
And that's it. That's all we've come up with.
だからあなたからお聞きしたいんですよ。
So, I want to ask you,
もっと詳しいことを。
do you have any further information?
また
I know nothing. Natsumi-san froze with a look of terror on her face. He was treating this like an interrogation. All the caution we'd taken up to this point had become totally meaningless.
大石さん
Oh, Oishi-san,
教えてくれますよね。
you'll tell me, won't you?
君吉さん。
Kimiyoshi-san.
知らん
I don't know. She tried standing in order to escape from here, but just then... Oh, with a fierce crashing sound, a pure white wall appeared in front of Natsumi-san. Oh, shit. Hell yeah, stand up for her. A wooden art canvas crashed onto the table. As I raised my head, I saw a boy staring down at us. Sorry, I have like an eyelash in my eye. Ugh. Wearing a school uniform bearing the same crest as Natsumi-san's school.
東堂君
Todo-kun. The boy that Natsumi-san referred to as Todo turned to face her in concern. Then,
出よう君吉
let's go, Kimiyoshi. After declaring that, he grabbed Natsumi's arms and pulled her up.
私たちまだお話し中なんですがね。
We're in the middle of a conversation here.
こちらにはないようです
That's not what it looks like.
だが君吉
Right, Kimiyoshi? Natsumi-san timidly nodded. Her eyes held a strong light in them. And then, the boy escorted Natsumi-san out of the store to protect her. Got him. What a failure. Even though we had the good fortune of speaking with the only daughter of the Kimiyoshi family, she ran away, and we didn't learn anything.
ちょっと
It's all Oishi's fault.
やりすぎでしたか
Damn.
ね
That was a little excessive, huh?
いや申し訳ない。
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
ついついいつもの感じで。
I got caught up in my typical routine. Oishi-san laughed, but of course he didn't seem sorry at all.
相手は女の子ですからね
She was just a girl.
ここは例えば見ない警部に代わってもらった方がベストかもしれませんよ
Given that, maybe it would have been best for Chief Inspector Minai to handle it instead.
ですね。
I suppose.
戻ったらお願いしてみますか。
I guess I should ask her when we get back. I could understand Oishi-san's impatience. By chance, we encountered someone who could give us a powerful clue. It seemed like we were right on the edge of something, so he wanted answers, and he wanted them now. Even as I was talking to her, there was never a moment when that frustration completely left my head. We failed to keep each other in check, and that blunder filled me with regret.
それじゃ気分を入れ替えてとりあえずご家族の評判だけでも聞いておきましょうか
Well then, why don't we go investigate the family's reputation for a change of pace?
ええ。
Yeah. Then, we wandered around the neighborhood, visited the classroom where Haruko Kimiyoshi was taking classes on flower arrangement, investigated Tojo Kimiyoshi's workplace, and casually asked around. And then, we visited Natsumi-san's house again about an hour after she left us.
雨上がったみたいですね
Seems the rain has let up. Oh. Oh shit. The scene in front of the Kimiyoshi family house made me catch my breath. The house was completely different when we visited here earlier. It was a normal looking house with a gate and a courtyard, kind of home that other homemakers would be envious of. That sort of house. But in just a few hours?
何ですか
What is
これは
What is this?
No.
It was a typical residential area, aside from this one part that was hard to describe. A set of candles were lined up one by one on each side of the gate. A thick Shinto straw festoon was hanging over the gate, and attached to it were several white paper streamers with a zigzagging pattern said to represent lightning. And it wasn't just the gate. The decorations also covered the wall around the courtyard, and even the entrance and windows of the house were decorated. And as the wind blew across the paper streamers hanging from the festoon, rustle, rustle, rustle. No, that wasn't just the sound of the paper streamers fluttering in the wind. When I looked up at the trees in the garden, I saw those life-size human-shaped figures cut out of white paper. Rustle, 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 rustle. It's my best rustling sound. That's the best you're gonna get out of me. Indeed, they were the source of that eerie sound. Characters were written on the paper figures. These were just like the paper figures I saw at the Hatakeyama house. Natsumi, Toji, Haruko, Aki. Each piece of paper had the name of a Kimiyoshi family member written on it. These are here too? When I looked by my feet, I saw the crushed markings of a bonfire slightly inside the gate. No, it didn't look like a simple bonfire. It looked like a Buddhist fire ritual. When a monk assembles the wood step by step and burns it at an altar, they call it a gomadaki ceremony. It's built to send out a prayer. It looked like the wood that was ignited on the small ritual pile wasn't extinguished by fire, but trampled out. That's the impression it gave me. Was this also part of some prayer?
さあどうなんでしょうか。
Well, I don't know the answer to that.
誰かに邪魔された、そんな様子にも見えますが。
But judging by the current state, it looks like it was disturbed by someone. Even so, that wasn't the only abnormal detail. The outside wall of the house was supposed to be white, but it was filled with enough markings to make it appear black. And of course, more prayers were written here too.
これのかむ床に癒しろの御けみきを捧げ祭りて。
Here on God's earth, we've brewed your sacred wine for generations. We pledge ourselves to you.
かしこみかしこみも恋のみ松楽。
Only the
平げく安らげくきこしめして。
Only the unfaithful will feel fear. May your subjugation give us peace of mind. Hear this.
お社の狼の高き広き合敷。
Great God Oyashiro, your blessings give us strength. Oishi-san stared at the house with a dark expression as he quietly read the prayer.
次はここかもしれませんね。
We might find one here too. An audible huh escaped me as I turned to look toward Oishi-san. However, he returned the glance back at me and tried to put his thoughts into words.
被害者ですよ。
A victim.
いや、ひょっとしたら加害者の方かもしれませんが。
Or maybe even a culprit. Damn, his words were ominous. I thought back on the girl who was with us until a little while ago. Natsumi, Kimiyoshi. I couldn't say anything else, but I continued staring at the ritualistic decorations. What a cliffhanger. It's gonna have to be a cliffhanger. I'm so sorry, guys. It's the headache. I've got like a headache starting to come, and that would impact my enjoyment reading, honestly, and probably your enjoyment listening to me read. So I think it's better if we just end it earlier than later. Very unfortunate on my part. I apologize. I'm a bad Higurashi reader. I swear we'll get through this one day. I'm at least glad I was able to finish that secret boss though thing before starting to feel bad. I also had, I mean, as I was saying earlier, today is technically my birthday. Not is technically, it is. It's a fact. And so I had probably some plans and things I wanted to do later tonight anyway, so I couldn't stay on long anyway on stream. So I should be back tomorrow though. Hopefully we do a big, nice chunk stream size. The plan, like I said, finally back to the blueprints. got lots of things to do in that, and then probably Yakuza Kiwami. So two game stream tomorrow, assuming I start early enough. So thanks for watching as always. Thanks for hanging out. Take it easy. Have a great rest of your Saturday. It's still early. I'm gonna peace out. I'm gonna like nap or something. Try my hardest here to feel better sooner rather than later. And yeah, we'll be back tomorrow. So have a nice rest of your day.